get the money that they believe is owed to them. And look, giving it to the government isn't going to prevent the other person, the other 90% from not being poor. Never has, never will. See, that there is this whole myth in the notion that if we tax the rich, everybody else is going to get that money. That's not the case. Never has been and never will be. Especially in a socialistic or communistic or fascist type of governmental society, they're not going to share that. It's got to go through the government. It's going to get laundered in the government. It's going to, that $90,000 out of that $100,000 is going to get eaten up, and it's going to be spit out the other side of government, and maybe there'll be enough left over for $30,000 worth of program to go into programs and stuff. And you're not going to get that much of it. It's going to get further with because there's a whole bunch of people that wants a part of this little piece, and government's already got its cut, and then it'll just pass down what's left over, and it won't be much. So you're still going to be in the poorhouse. I don't, it's really kind of amazing because you ask people, well, do you think you are going to get ahead if government taxes that rich person more? And the answer is usually, well, no. Then why do you want to tax them so much? Well, because we need the money in the government, and they're the ones that can afford it. Afford it. That's the whole issue. They think that the rich, so-called rich, can afford it when they don't even really realize what rich is and isn't. And many of them, as they if they win life's lottery, so they're told, and if they win a lottery or they come up with something or get a job or what have you, business starts to boom that they own, and they start to realize this greater amount of income, and they edge ever closer to such a tax bracket. Then they lament it because then they say, "Well, I'm not rich." Well, you are, according to your neighbor that you're leaving behind in the economic dust. And then they say, well, I worked hard for this. Well, not according to your neighbor that you're leaving in the economic dust. They think that you stole it from all your workers. And then, they realize, well, no, I didn't steal it. I worked 6 and 7 days a week. I earned this. Well, not according to your neighbor who believes what the government has been telling them about you, that you and your kind, your ilk, as they say, are stealing from your employees. Well, you probably think that you pay your employees pretty well. Well, they don't think that you pay your employees well enough because you're getting rich and your employees are not. I know and some people will when they argue the point, well, you can't make your employees rich with you by paying them at such an overly high salary. Remember that high tech company that the owner, the founder, the co-founder decided to forego his $1 million salary and give everybody a minimum $70,000 salary, so including himself. So everybody's earning $70,000 at this company, and some people think, well, that's a noble idea. No, that's one of the dumbest ideas because now there's no reason or let's face it, humans are kind of a greedy lot. Humans, we are. We need incentive. And one incentive to do a good job is, hey, if I do a good job, one, I'm going to get a raise and or a promotion. But if everybody's earning the same, why are they going to change what they do? They're not going to press forward as hard. There's going to not be any reason to do so. We've seen this type of thing in this experiment happen and fail numerous times throughout history. And he's going to have to. This business owner is going to have to learn the same lesson. Ben and Jerry's learned that lesson. Because they insisted for a long time that people the people who got paid the most weren't paid. I think it was more than 3.5 times what the person at the bottom got paid. So the most of the on an annual basis. So if if the lowest person made say $30,000, then the highest paid person couldn't earn more than 3.5 times 110,000. And when Ben and Jerry decided that they didn't want to be involved in running the everyday operations anymore, they wanted to do other things, and they tried to hire, corporate CEO, they found out they couldn't find a qualified person who would come to work under those terms. So they had to break the pact with the workers on that. And of course, workers a lot of the workers, the lower paid ones, were highly upset. Well, wait a minute. If you're going to pay this guy $500,000, shouldn't we all get a raise? And Ben and Jerry said, well, no. Because, you're the janitor, or all you're doing is packing ice cream. You're not worth $70,000, $80,000, or $90,000, $100,000 a year. Sorry. And some of the people were kind of indignant and upset because they felt, well, it's their money. But it's not. It's not the employee's money. It's the company and company owners' money. And if the owners happen to be individuals and not shareholders, or who are individuals, but shareholders could also be institutions. But if it's not the employees, if it's not an employee-owned company, then no, the money's not theirs. They don't get to decide, or should not get to decide, what and how much is spent when and where. But this is the whole notion with this: spread the wealth around, because it doesn't get spread around. All you're doing is taking it from somebody, and then you get some people who think, well, yeah, stick it to them, stick it to that rich person, because all they did was steal, but they didn't. They created the job that you are working at. They're paying you. That rich person created your job. He created a company or a business that created your job. It just didn't spring out of nowhere. It just wasn't there one day. The company had to first go through a number of different phases. Had to be thought of. An idea had to come to somebody. Then they had to implement a plan and put together a plan, and then come up with an investment strategy to get the thing off the ground. It could have been their own money, could have been borrowed money from somebody, could have been stock initiative money, what have you. They had to get the money in order to start the venture, and then they had to grow it from there, and then they could hire a few people or so. But this whole notion that corporations are start out as being like Walmart didn't start out being a $1 trillion retailer. They didn't start out with over 4,000, nearly 5,000 stores. They started with one store. A man and a dream started with one store and grew from there. That's how it works. But we're supposed to say, oh, well, Sam Walton is evil because he started Walmart stores. Well, why does that make him bad? A lot of people like shopping at Walmart, and Walmart has done a lot of things to make certain items in this economy a lot more affordable for those who can least afford high-budget items all the time. But, they can go into Walmart once a week and get whatever they need at a really ridiculously low price usually. But at the same time, for Sam Walton and his family to reap the rewards of being able to provide such a service to the community, now they're being chastised. Well, yeah, they're worth so much. Why don't they give more back? Well, because it's none of your business how much they give back, but they do give. They give a lot. But you don't see a lot of these so-called liberals giving in return. No, they just want to take from somebody else. And by taking from somebody else, they think, well, I'll be, they think they can go to somebody, the rest of the public and say, see, we took care of them for you. They're not going to, they're not going to take your stuff any. Well, you don't have to take their stuff anymore. They're crap. They're too much money on their end and not enough for you. And this is what they're trying to portray and tell people about the rich, that all they're doing is stealing from you. And if we tax them, then they won't get to keep that money. But where does that money go that they tax? Shouldn't you not be so quick to judge and say, yeah, take their cash? Because let's just say that you get the promotion now and you start working your way up the ladder. You want to hit those tax brackets too? Well, of course you don't. Nobody wants to hit those tax brackets. Nobody wants to pay those types of taxes. Not even, the most liberal of, liberals don't want to pay those taxes either. Many of them don't. Look at Al Sharpton. He still owes $4 million or something in back taxes. Tim Geithner didn't pay all his taxes on time, and a bunch of other people didn't pay their taxes on time that either were in the administration of Obama or tried to be in the administration of Obama. And some of them didn't get into the administration of Obama simply because they had this tax issue because they weren't paying their taxes. So evidently, they didn't like paying taxes either, but they're out there telling you that we all should be paying more in taxes, especially if you're above a certain level that they think is rich. And if you ask them what's rich, well, we get all kinds of answers. We even, during Obama's first campaign, it basically went from being rich was considered to making $250,000 a year all the way down to $120,000 a year. Yes, go back and look it up. Joe Biden said it. I don't know about you, but a lot of people who are earning $100,000 or $120,000 a year, especially depending on where they live, they're not rich. And I've explained this, another thing that I've explained ad nauseum, that if you live in Boston, if you live in New York City, if you live in Chicago, if you live in San Francisco, $100,000 a year is middle class, considering that the average median price of a home in those areas could be around $300,000 to $400,000, and that's for a so-called starter home. I mean, it's crazy to think that we can have this notion, this single notion, that this one size fits all throughout this entire. Look, you earn $120,000 in, I don't know, Kansas City, Kansas. That's a lot more money than earning $120,000 in New York City, Manhattan. It is. Because the cost of living in Kansas City, Kansas is so much less expensive. You're going to, you could buy a 3,000 square foot house for a couple $100,000 in Kansas City, Kansas. You can't do that in Manhattan, New York City. You can't buy an apartment of that size for a couple hundred. You know what you get for a couple $100,000 in New York City, in Manhattan? If you're lucky, you'll get a broom closet. Literally. Rents are $2,000 a month to start in some places. Now, that's $24,000, $25,000 a year just in rent for a small place. Oh, you're earning $100,000, Rod. You can afford it, really? What if you're $100,000 and you have a family? That $24,000, $25,000 a year for that small place is usually fit enough and big enough for one, maybe two people. You add a kid to that mix. Oh, no. You're not. That's too small now. Now you gotta up the ante and find something bigger, better, and and hopefully in your same neighborhood so they can go to the good school that you want them to go to. But Bernie Sanders seems to think that taxing them 90% on a marginal tax rate of 90% on the rich is going to make everybody else who's not so rich more rich. It's going to enrich them somehow. I don't know how that's possible when the government doesn't give you the money. The government doesn't give you the money. Even, they're not even giving the poor welfare recipient the money. So I don't know how it gets to the point where people think that they can just go ahead and say, well, yeah, they're rich, they have too much money, they can afford to be taxed more. It's not going to help you in one bit. You shouldn't be so jealous of somebody else's wealth that you want to take it from them. That's not a Christian thing to do. It's not a good religious person in most major religions. That's not a good thing to do. That's going to create some bad karma on your part. And which is why a lot of people probably stay poor, because they have all this bad karma building up because, they're overly wrongly jealous of other people. And instead of going out and making their own and lifting themselves up, they just want to pull everybody down to their level. And pulling everybody else down to your level doesn't help raise you one bit. Think about it.